Namaste and hello. You are in the Rosemilk Podcast with me, Lakshmi. Today's guest is someone very, very special to me. I've had the privilege to know her as a beautiful person and also a great leader. None other than Kelley Logren from the US. She is taking this time out early in the morning for us and doing this. So, firstly, I'd like to thank you for joining me, and I hope I keep you comfortable throughout this session, rather, this discussion that we're going to have. So, today's topic is going to touch on three main powerhouses, which is life, leadership, and retirement. So, thank you so much for doing this, Kelley. And you want to give a bit of introduction to yourself to our listeners?
Yes, well, first I wanted to say good day to everyone, and thank you, Lakshmi, for inviting me to participate as your guest in one of your podcasts. I feel very honored, and I feel very honored to have known you through the work environment, and you're one of the very few individuals that I continued a friendship with, and pretty impressive because we are on opposite sides of the globe. Yes, so my name is Kelley Logren, as Lakshmi had said earlier, and I reside in the United States in a small town along the North Carolina coast. Been here for about 10 years in North Carolina, which we love because the weather is very lovely as far as we have the mountains on the west side and we have the ocean and the coast on the east side, which is where we live. It's all nice until the hurricanes come around, but we just got through Aaron, no repercussions whatsoever, which is lovely. I grew up in Pennsylvania, have five siblings, so there were six of us, 3 girls, 3 boys. I'm in the middle, and I went to college in Ohio, and current job is with an organization that is in Maryland, just outside of the DC area.
Wow, nice. So I think this is going to be a very fun conversation. So let's get started. The first segment that I have designed here is life moments that shape us. So Kelley, I know that you have been through a lot of stages of life that you have seen, from your childhood to growing up, and then your teens, and then now in your professional setup. So I think you have seen a lot. So I just want to get into the depth of that. What has really shaped you to be this person of immense strength? And I see you like that. So how can you say which all moments in your life has shaped you to what you are today?
Well, one, it was just growing up in a big family, and credit goes to our parents because they let us just be who we are, just because I was very as a tomboy growing up, and they didn't have any problem with that, and they let us play if we wanted to get in a sport or if we wanted to get into the art side. They just let us all blossom and go our own path, as opposed to saying you have to be a lawyer or a doctor, which is fine for the parents who do that. So, but they respected that we were each individuals, and molded us into who we are, to be like characters, and be able to take jabs when against each other and stuff. And I mean, with siblings, of course, you're going to have jabs and everything, and little discussions and arguments and stuff. But just letting us just work our way through those. And so that's kind of like just was really the upbringing, in a big family and stuff, with lots of cousins and aunts and uncles, and really good friends. But just the evolution of, just like you said, growing up and going, as a child, going through the different, levels of schooling and stuff, and friends coming into your life and going out of your life, and same thing with family members and stuff as you age. But other significant times of my life that kind of molded me to where I am, I think, today is just, finding the autonomy when you going away to college. I was the first one in our family, the fourth one in line, and I was the first one to go away. The other 3 older than me, they went away. They were in the area that we grew up. Okay. So that was a big point in my life. And my dad just said, when we were heading out there, he just was like, he goes, I know, because I was the shyest one in the family, the quietest one. So I was like, why am I going away? But he sensed my angst And he was just very kind and just said, Kel, just want to, give one of you kids an opportunity to get away, to go away to school and experience living in a dorm and stuff. And he goes, and if you're not comfortable or happy with that, he goes, I'm happy to have you go to school, around here. And so that just putting that like out there to me and recognizing my nervousness was like huge. So credit to, like I said, my dad and my folks for supporting me and, giving me that option to come back if I was too unhappy, but I did not. So that was good. And then also to going.
So this was your college years.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Because, like if you go away, you're like all the decision making is on you. You decide to go to school, or you decide to show up and go to class that you signed up for, or you decide to like just sit in your dorm room until it's like midterms and finals. So, but I attended all my classes because, they're being paid for. So if you're paying for them, you should show up. So, yeah. So
wonderful.
Yeah.
Nice. I think that's a very important point, what you said. College and the hostel or the dormitory experience is nice.
Because you're thrown in with a bunch of strangers, and you just have to navigate that.
Yeah.
So,
nice.
Yes.
Anything else that you wanted to add?
No, it's just like, and the other point was like, was just going to say was doing my first trip abroad, which I did by myself. Actually, the first couple of trips I did by myself, and I did hiking tours. The first one was to Ireland, and then the second was to New Zealand. And why I kind of, this is like a highlight for me is because, nobody in my family, this is back in the day when you weren't kind of doing that, and nobody in my family was interested at the time in international travel, and I didn't have any friends who were interested in international travel. So with my first job after I graduated, I saved my pennies and I said, well, I'm going to do this myself. So I did.
Wow.
Yeah. Nice. So I had to figure out, and this is back in the day before like the internet was like really around, not trying to date myself or anything, but so I had to do I had to do all the research on how to get a passport and how to get the international flights and stuff, and signing up, and finding these hiking tours and just, setting everything up.
Nice. Yeah. Solo travel does impact a person in a very large extent. So nice. I think my next question would be, when did you realize your true potential? When was the first time that you felt, whoa, this is me? I should never let that go away from me.
Probably, not to cite the college again, but probably like the college, because again, that was a big turning point for me to like get into like, I don't have to be this backwards. It's not that I had to be this, but it made me evolve out of like being so bashful and shy. Sorry about the camera thing. So that was one, and just, getting into the workforce, and again, like navigating the different personalities and just, kind of finding your way into an organization that where, your team's probably been there for a couple years and have already, clicked and melded together and stuff, and just, learning how to, when you go from one adventure to another, that's just how to navigate and fit in. And as I evolved to like, the leadership role and stuff, it's just learning how to getting your team together and who's going to work with you, or who will be working with you, and just finding their strengths and, highlighting and utilizing them to their, greatest potential.
Nice. And I think that is what makes you the best manager. So I would appreciate, that point that you just spoke. So wonderful. We will move on to the important aspect of this podcast, which is going to be about the leader you are. So the segment 2 is going to be leadership with integrity and grace. I know how always I've seen you, very strong, and you always have a plan when there's something ahead of you. So I've seen you as a very meticulous planner. Know the strengths of your reportees or the people who are working with you, and you just tap on the right note. So how did you cultivate this skill and spotting that correct talent in them? How did you do that?
Well, what I did was I observe and watch like the people who I want to like, I kind of wanted, like, again, our progression was from like data management up to project management to project leadership. So what I did was I take the bits and pieces of different managers, whether they were my managers directly or what I saw in different circles. I always looked to the person who was ahead of me, and I looked to see what their way of doing business was or managing was, and then what worked for what was in my opinion, if I said, okay, if and when I become a manager, would that be the style I would adopt, or would it be like, so I took bits and pieces of what I thought worked and what I thought did not work. Like micromanaging, I don't like to be micromanaged, and I don't like to micromanage people. So that's one thing that I definitely observed from some individuals, that I was like, nope, that's not one way I was going to do it. And again, it's kind of just, we did have the option to have trainings and different, leaderships and workshops and such. So I took, the bits and pieces from there. And again, I think just growing up in a big family and just learning, like I said earlier, how to navigate, and just, you have the people who have their strengths and they have their weaknesses. I'm not about, like, it's a fine line besides saying, well, you should, focus on people's weaknesses and make them strengths. My thing is like, I'm going to focus on their strengths and what people bring to the table, because I, as a leader, I knew I did not have to have all the answers. And I mean, that's what I figured out. I don't have to know all the answers. I don't have to be the smartest one in the room, because I have a whole team here that I'm going to lean on to give me the answers that we need and help solve problems that, that arise during the course of a, project.
Wow, wonderful. I think that point that you said is what is lacking in many of the people, above you, that they want to be the smartest among the group. They don't want to look like they know less. And in that circus, many things are lost. And so I think that's a very wonderful quality that you have, Kelley, and I've observed that many times. So I appreciate that. Nice. If you would have seen a lot of people, right, working with you all these years. So what makes one person feel happy at a workplace?
I think feeling valued, like truly feeling like you are being listened to. And that somebody has your back. That's what I tell people, like, being a manager now, and, with new team members coming, new individuals being assigned to my team and such. That's the first thing I say to them is, that I'll be your biggest cheerleader and coach, but what I need from you is, like, to be honest with yourself, with where you are, where you want to be, so that you can be honest with me. Know who you are, where you want to go, and I can help you. Even if it's the next level, or if you're like, I don't like data management, because I've had those individuals where they think it's completely different than what they think it is, if they're like a coordinator from their previous lives. But that's what I just, like I said, ask people is just, I'll be your biggest coach, but you have to, like, help me help you.
You've been in this role for quite a long time, right, in data management and doing this work. So what do you think has changed in the leadership from the time you started to what it is now? One good thing and one bad thing that has changed.
Well, back in the day, and our current leaders have referred to this in different corporate meetings, as it was a mom and pop shop, and it's because it was owned by two statisticians, husband and wife. They owned, I think, the majority of the company. He was the president, and then the vice president was another statistician who I believe was his student at one point, working on her PhD. So she and her husband, so the four of them, the two couples, owned the organization. So it was a small mom and pop shop, and you could go up to their office and say hey, and sit with them and talk, just be frank, and see them in the hallway. Our vice president, she was like, when we finally went to Casual Fridays, she would wear jeans, so she was very just like one of us. Actually, both of them didn't, like, there was no airs about them as far as like, I'm the president, I'm the the owner, like there was none of that. And they were very I think influential and instrumental the success of the company and how we grew. That was the aspect that I really enjoyed there, and I think was very positive, because they did cultivate an environment of everybody, it was for the people, the teams and stuff, and because we used to have profit sharing, which was huge. So that was a big entity. But I mean, but they retired, as life goes on, they retired and sold to, an investment company, which, is fine. It's just where we are in life. And the thing with the investment company and where we are now with the second investment company owning us, it's not a bad thing, but in the end, it is business. And I know, like, our current leaders, I mean, it is their job in the end to make the company profitable, so that the people who are invested in the company, whatever they invested, they're looking for what they put in along with X% return on their investment, which, it's business. That's what, so. But the positive side of how far we've come. I mean, we're now using like AI in certain tools and entities of our business, which I think is huge. So, but again, the leaders that were before us to who we have now, what I'm impressed with is just they continue to, they diversified. I mean, I know we are, certain contracts are heavy on in one entity versus another, but they always did recognize the need to diversify. Just like if you're in investments, for a retirement account and stuff like that, the key messaging is diversify. So that's what they did with our businesses and the different contracts and stuff, and just always pushing and expanding and finding like new ways that we can provide our services. So I give credit to all the leaders ahead. I mean, I know that we sit there and go like, oh, they're untouchable and stuff like that, but in the end, they are human and they're just doing the job that they had been hired to do, make the business successful.
Nice. So, and I think that's the important aspect, right? Like when you start small, you need to be as humble as you can, and then when you reach big, you need to be even more humbler, make people feel valued. And so I'm glad that you had opportunity to work with such people, so I'm happy. Self-doubt and this imposter syndrome where you keep questioning, is it possible, can I do it, oh my god, and things like that. So confidence is a very difficult thing, at least for my generation, is what I've seen. So how do you deal with that? Like, I know that as you told previously that there was no AI and now people have moved on with such things, but I seem to see you a lot more confident than people from my generation who know a little more. So how do you deal with that? Like, do you also have self-doubts, or how do you deal with it?
As far as the use of AI, or just in
general
with the workplace?
AI as an example.
No, not self-doubts and like where I'm going to be with things like that. And, and I do appreciate that, what you said, the younger generation has, kind of like, sometimes they just have the just need I think as far as that, what your question is just having somebody, like I said, to just boost your confidence and say, you have this. I mean, because there are, like, I know people have done that for me when I was in that space too. And, it was like, wow, she's on the bridge. If she could be a leader, she could, you know what I mean? She just needs to be. And sometimes you just need a little push to have that, like, and it doesn't, the thing in the end is you can't really break too much. You know what I mean? So it's not like you're going to be flying solo. So like when I was like, kind of like, when my boss retired and turned the reins over to me to be the project leader, I was like, are you sure? What about so-and-so? And they're like, nope, you're it. You know the project. You've been doing management. You've been kind of running the show the whole time. I was just there on the side. So sometimes it's just like remove what they say over here, the training wheels, remove the safety net so that you are, making the decisions. And that's the biggest way to build confidence. And again, just having people, surrounding yourself as much as possible with people who are going to build you up as opposed to knock you down. So like I said, the first thing I say to people when they, they're assigned to me is just, I will be your biggest cheerleader. And I mean it. I try, you know what I mean? I mean, I'll bring things to their attention. If there's something that we just need to shore up that they're missing the mark on here or there. But in the end, I just like, if you want to get to the next level, just like, here's what we need to do. And just, finding yourself that, yes, I can do this.
Nice. And I think 2 important points you brought up. Pushing someone, I mean, like taking a punt on them and saying, you can do it, just go do it. And the other one is, just being there for them even if the decision goes wrong. I think it's important, right? Only then they will trust you again, and they might take that step.
Yeah, and so the one thing I would do when I was like trying to, look along the landscape of the next leaders and stuff like that is, when people would bring me a problem or an issue, I would always turn it back to them and say, well, what do you think? How do you think we should approach this or resolve it? And then pretty much 9 times out of 10, the individuals got what I would, they were right on the path that I was going to be on as far as like the resolution and stuff. And it would be like, sometimes they surprise me. I'm like, I didn't think about that angle. That's very good. And then other times I would just be like, okay, but don't forget about what about this, like the downstream effects and stuff. So just kind of just, bouncing things off of each other. But like I said, 9 times out of 10, the individual got it and went. And that's like a very subliminal way to have people, I think, to be like, I don't think I have to go to Kelley anymore. I think I got this.
Nice. And I think that's more important for our generation, because as I said, we have a lot of self-doubt and low in confidence. We need people like that leaving a legacy of leadership, and we feel confident that, hey, I should be there for the next person like how I had one. So, and I think only then this will get better. So nice, wonderful. What all makes you angry at work? Because I've never seen you get angry that quite often. That's why this question is.
I know. Well, because I'm a pretty even. I try to feel like I'm pretty easily killed. I think anger is a very strong thing. Like there's nothing where
that'll spoil your mood. Maybe.
Okay, that's better, because like angry, it's like that's a pretty intense emotion. Spoil my mood. Well, taking away profit sharing was like a really? So that happened years ago. But yeah, that was like a, you're messing with my retirement stuff, our profit sharing, that, because that was a, well, there goes away this other entity of sharing the profit that the company is making because we're helping you make it. So that kind of gave me pause to go, sour, if that was your word.
In the present day?
Well, the layoffs. That's like, you know what I mean? And I know it's business and stuff like that, but I mean, it is a hit, the one that happened, you know what I mean? Like, because like you lose some really good people, but I know it's hurtful. I've been there myself. Pardon me?
Yeah, that's like a whole different podcast that we can have. Such a big topic it is, and it's not under your control, and that's all you can do. And you're just waiting for your turn, irrespective of where you are, what you're doing.
Hopefully not.
It's that hope that's keeping us going.
Yeah. Well,
was it this prevalent back then, like when you started off?
No, but the reason why I landed at my current organization is because I was laid off. I was laid off from the company before that, and the reason why I was at that company is because I was laid off from the company before that. So I know what it's yes. So I know what it's like to be laid off. So, but and I do tell some of the individuals who I know are very anxious and are like, and so the same things I tell them, I'm like, I know you don't want to hear this, but it has happened to me. I know what it's like. Yes, it's a big blow. It's a big, because this is like, work is a big entity of our lives.
Right.
It's not just the financial thing, but it's like, it really defines a big part of us. Right. So, but the 2 times when I look back, yes, they were big blows. It took a while to get the next job. But when I look back, and you do this in any aspect of your life, if you take a pause and look back and you sit there, and it's like, for as hard as that was, and for as upset I was, it pushed me to the next good thing. So that's with that. And also too, in the end, Lakshmi, what I try to tell people was, the target practice where it's like the little red dot or the circle in the middle, and then it's rings and rings and rings. Well, our life is just like that target. Wow. Because it's like the middle circle is us. We're just this small little dot, and that's all we can control is how we react to something. And if we have an opportunity come across our path. We either decide to take it or not take it. So what I can only control to a situation is how I react, or how I don't react. And the other atmosphere, you know what I mean, is just like the things you can't control. Even the people, like if you're married or your partner or family, that's the next closest circle. And then you get out, and then it's the outer rings. And so as you can see, even with your job, if it's you, the employee, and your manager's the next circle, and then you like your department heads, and then you get to like the middle executives, then you get to senior executives, and you can just see it gives a visual of like you really don't have in those gaps. As the further you get out, you don't have a lot of influence, I'll say, going from you to that. So like I said, and I'm like, people for some reason where we don't like change. And I, but my thing is like, I've always seen it as an opportunity. Even like I said, if it's knocked down, like losing your job and stuff like that, it's like it usually ends up being an opportunity for the next best thing in your life.
Nice, wonderful. I think when you are laid off or asked to leave, that's the last or the least they can do about it, right? So you are given a place where you can start something so beautiful and meaningful.
Yeah, but I don't want to I don't want to underscore. It is a big blow, because I think like the one took me like 10 months. So like, how do you know what I mean? So you get like, the part-time jobs and gigs and stuff like that. But still, it's kind of like, I remember like Monday through Friday, I felt completely like, because you can hear like people, you're in your house and stuff like that, you can hear the traffic getting up and the neighbors and stuff and getting in their cars, they're going to work, and then they come home. So the only time I felt like I was normal was like when they were home in the evening or on the weekends. And then like Monday through Friday during the business hours, I just, and I just said, okay, well, I can't sit here and wallow anything, because that's not going to help me or do anything. It won't get me to the next level or a job. So I just decided Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, typical business hours, my job was to find a job.
Yes, yeah. I get that. So if we can move to the next segment, which is segment 3, retirement, slowing down without, stopping. This is nothing to put your age or anything, out, but at some
How old are you?
At some point in time, everybody is gonna, reach this place where, they just want to slow down. But I've seen a lot of people, they don't just slow down, but they stop. So I always feel, how is it even possible? Like, you've done your bit for 30-40 years. How can you just stop at once? And this is the first question that I have. So what is retirement for you? Like, would you stop, or are you just slowing down? That.
Yeah, that is a good observation. I think it's pretty prevalent, and because you're right, because it's like for 40, like you said, 30-40 years, you're up in the morning going to work, even if it's like going into a bedroom to get online, it's up in the morning 5 days a week, week after week, which becomes year after year after year, decade after decade after decade.
Right.
I don't think you could. For me personally, I will not completely stop and just sit around. I think it's like run the rat race, and then all of a sudden you stop. I think that's a shock to your system. So, but I will say for me personally, I think I'll be successful in retirement. I think the freedom, I'm not going to work. I might take the first year off completely, just to have the freedom of waking up and saying, what do I want to do today? What project do I want to tackle? Yeah, or nothing. What don't I want to do today? And then but I would get like either volunteer or do like a part-time job, just because it's, not because of the money or the income, but it's like to have something to get you out and go like, oh, I have to work, or volunteer, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday this week and stuff like that. And that way you have something to do. And then just, I know the individuals around here are like, this is an older town as far as a lot of people retired, but our neighbors and stuff like that, they're phenomenal. They have their groups, they go to the gym, they have their card things, they do their games, and so they keep social.
Nice.
They have a pretty big social calendar, which is what I think you have to have when you're retired, because you lose that from like the office space.
Wonderful. And I think that's very important to keep yourself active also, right? As you grow is when the diseases also grow in you. So it's important that you stay active. And my next question is something in this line. So we have a purpose now. We have some work, we have some commitments, and blah blah blah. But when retirement comes, the word that is associated with that retirement is there's no purpose. You're done. You're settled in your financially. You're free. If you had kids, they are all settled in their lives, and if you're just all by yourself, you have enough money to just be. How do you define your purpose when you're getting into that stage of retirement?
I think my purpose would be having the space and time to be able to do like more things. Like I would like to get into, not the cook, that, but just seeing shows and stuff like that, and like trying my hand at making pasta, or like doing something that's like homemade from scratch. I always wanted to make pies because like growing up, my aunt and my grandmother like made homemade pies and stuff. So that stuff I would like to, in your own pizza crust and stuff. I know it doesn't sound hard, and I know people do it now and they work. It's just not something that I take time. And so that's what I mean, to just be able to find a project that I've never done before, and just, have that that space and that time to do it.
Wow, nice. It's sounding a bit like a freelancing thing, that I would do anything at my time. So and I think that's the biggest luxury anybody can have, and you don't get that when you're working or you're employed. So I think that's a wonderful purpose, Kelley. Nice.
Thank you.
I think maybe another purpose should be you visiting India. So please add that.
That's on my list. You told me that was the first place I'm going when I'm retired. Nice. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to some really good Indian authentic food.
Yeah. Nice.
It's not the same in the US.
But I thought you'll be coming to India for me. But you're coming for food. I feel sad.
You cook, don't you? I'm getting a twofer there.
Yeah.
Remember, I'm pretty efficient. I try to be efficient and planned. So with you, I get to visit and I get to eat.
How fast, I would not say, because I don't wish that for you, but whenever that happens, I'd be the happiest.
I know. Looking forward to it.
And if this is one aspect of retirement where I said people stop, there's another aspect of retirement where people get scared, like they're anxious to even get into that phase. Like my dad, he has slowed down, but he's scared. He says, how would I even sit in the house? I've started to work when I was 18, and he's 63, 64 now. So he is scared of even entering that phase of life. How do you see that, and how should people get out of that?
Well, for me, I'm not scared. I'm actually looking forward to it. And I think with that mindset, because if you think about it, again, we kind of touched upon this earlier. What do you do when you're a kid? You basically follow a trajectory, right?
Right.
You go through school, go to college, university, whatever. So you have a trajectory, and then you go to work. Most people, a lot of people go to work. There's a trajectory. Like if you want to get through, and get raises and promotions. Same thing if you are like a stay-at-home mom or a stay-at-home dad. It's like there's a thing. My job is to raise these kids, and there's even though I hope the stay-at-home parent knows that they are doing a trajectory, because their kids, they're pushing their kids. They're getting that, they're getting that conveyor belt going upwards. These different stages in our lives, the future is kind of almost defined for us. Like the trajectory is already thrown out there. But when you're retirement, there isn't a trajectory. You know what I mean? I think most people go oh, the trajectory is you get old and go. So I'm not about I know I'll get older and I will be slower, but I think the freedom to just paint your own trajectory, and it doesn't even have to be it could go I'm going left, I'm going right, I'm going up, I'm going to go down. You know what I mean? So I think not having it defined for me is what is going to make me successful. I get to define it myself.
Wonderful. And I think the point that you're bringing up is very important. Retirement doesn't have to be same for anyone. Like it's very subjective, but it's nothing to do with weakness. It is not a synonym to weakness or that sort. You just need to find your purpose and just be there. And if your purpose is to just stay put, that's your purpose. Just live it happily, right?
Yeah, and just to add, Lakshmi, is just, and I also think, like, when you're like a kid or like in school or working, you're kind of giving like those entities are defining who you are, and you're giving of yourself to like your parents, to the teacher, and learning and stuff, and to the to your manager, to the company, to as a worker. So I think when you get to retirement, the way I see it is you finally get to give to yourself. And I don't know if people that's what it's not something that others recognize or whatever, but that's how I kind of see retirement, is finally like you've given, and same thing with parents and stuff. You've given, and then your kids get off to college and grow up, and they start their next trajectories and stuff. But this is where I like kind of take it as like you get to give to yourself then.
Nice. With the three important powerhouses that we have spoken, there were so many answers that you said, and that just blew my mind. And I was so, it was so relatable, Kelley, because I've always seen you as a person who I can look up to, talk anything and everything. So it was a very, very joyful conversation that I've had. Again, I really cannot thank you enough for doing this, and one of the nicest podcast guests you have been. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. No, you're very sweet, and like I said in the beginning, you're one of the few. When people leave, or they put out their emails and stuff, and I'm just like, I just wish them the best. But you're, like I said, you're probably like the only one I'm actually, I reach out to others occasionally here and such, but you're the one I kind of, have been the most in contact with. So I appreciate, like I said, your support and, working with me and stuff, and like the wonderful thoughts that you brought and different angles when you're like, what about we do it this way and stuff. And I was like, that's great. Yeah, go for that. So again, you brought things to the table, and so did your, all the team members and stuff. So I appreciate you, and I appreciate that you do this and bring different guests in, and, just some of the quirkiness that you have on your different podcasts and stuff like that you have out there for this.
Thank you so much. I hope I kept you comfortable. I know it was early for you, but I know you are early riser. But
yeah, no worries.
So thank you again.